Listen to that production value right there. Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redacted Rambles, a show where you basically hear me ramble and drone on about a certain topic, or topics, depending on what's new in the world. Today, we're going to talk about a couple of things. First off, we're going to talk about the blue-white game, Penn State's spring game this past weekend. The good, the bad, the concerning, all that good stuff. And really, there's not a whole lot of concern about the play because, let's face it, a spring game is just... You can't put too much stock in a spring game because I know it's quote-unquote live except for the quarterbacks, but it's still, you haven't been practicing long enough. I think 15 practices? You haven't been practicing long enough to really want to tear the other guy's head off because anyone who's played football knows that, especially in training camp, after a while you get tired of hitting on your own people and that really, really weighs on you. And then you get some little skirmishes and scuffles and such. So there wasn't really that much. And spring games in general are basically just a way to, obviously just something for the fans. Another way to get the young incoming freshmen and transfers acclimated to the atmosphere and the situation of game day, so to speak. And also, it'll give the coaches like a template based to see what needs to be worked on going forward. That way, when training camp does open up, they have their parameters set and their plan going forward. So that's basically what a spring game is. And the white side won 27-0. There was some good stuff there. Both quarterbacks, Drew Aller, Bo Perbula, didn't look particularly great. Aller did kind of get settled in a little towards the end there and made some good throws. But Perbula, he was a little off on his throws, but he's a really good guy to set the tone with his legs, and he'll do that again this year. And really, in a perfect world, you'd want to see what the new offensive coordinator, Andy Kolonicki, is going to do, but of course you only see a very vanilla scheme. There's reports that they saw maybe 5% of his playbook. So we'll see. That's the biggest question going into the season is how is Drew Aller going to get work in his system, because he wasn't so great in Yursic's system. And honestly, last year kind of showed me with Aller that he might not be a fit in Franklin's system. See, that's the thing. It doesn't matter who the offensive coordinator is. It's the offense that Franklin wants to run. Now, hopefully, he does give this new guy a little more freedom to do what he wants, kind of play to his strengths a little bit. He's a guy who likes to do a lot of motions, a lot of some RPO stuff, but he also likes to throw the ball down the field. Now, the RPO stuff, that's more for Perbula than it is for Aller. Aller is mobile, but he's not the kind of guy you really want doing a lot of RPO. But if we're going to push the ball down the field, Aller's got that arm. Because Aller's got a lot of arm talent. He's a great player. I'm still not 100% convinced he's a fit in this system. Because you can draw some comparisons to Christian Hackenberg when James Franklin first got there. Now, don't get me wrong. Drew Aller is way better than Christian Hackenberg. I'm not saying they're the same player, but if you see Christian Hackenberg's freshman year with Bill O'Brien, he looked like, obviously he was a freshman, but he showed a nice improvement, and we were optimistic about this dude. This dude could be a Heisman candidate in a couple of years. Then Franklin got there, and he absolutely fell apart. Now, a lot of that is he just wasn't as good as advertised. That was proved by the fact that he couldn't make an NFL roster. He couldn't even make an XFL or a USFL roster or whatever one of those other spring leagues he was a part of. He couldn't even stick around there. So I don't even think he's playing anymore. So that's part of it. But another part of it is, Hackenberg was more of a pro-style pocket passer type, and that's just not what Franklin really runs. He runs that spread offense, college type of stuff, RPOs, more mobility, moving around a bit, which, that shows like a guy like Trace McSorley and to a certain extent Sean Clifford. That's why they were able to excel in that system. They were more of a runner, like Perbula. But we'll see what this new guy can do with Aller. And obviously he's going to have a great running game behind him. As we saw, Singleton and Allen, of course, they didn't play in the spring game. They didn't need to. There are stud running backs that are a two-headed monster, but we've got like, I think like 30 or 40 4- and 5-star running backs in our running back room. We are so deep in running backs. I'm actually surprised that Singleton or Allen have not entered the transfer portal so they could go somewhere to be like the focus bell cow type of back. Although that's really not something that's a thing anymore. I mean, there's some outliers, obviously, in both college and pros, but a lot of it's running back by committee. And when you have Singleton and Nick Singleton, for crying out loud, and Katron Allen, that's just, dude, I mean, that's just hard to stop, man. I mean, you have Singleton running all around you, wearing you out, and then you get a fresh leg Katron Allen that just bulldoze right over you. It's hard to stop. The biggest news, I think, coming out of this whole weekend is the absence of Keandre Lambert-Smith from the spring game. And now, as I'm recording this on a Tuesday at about 2:08 p.m., he has entered the transfer portal. And a lot of people are not necessarily surprised by this, although it is going to hurt because he is our lead. He is our top receiver from last year, left, but he's shown some flashes of some really, really great potential, but he has been very inconsistent. And a lot of people were surprised he didn't enter the transfer portal months ago when he could have. He decided to stick around, but my guess is he's just not fitting. He doesn't feel he's a fit in this new system with this new coaching staff and everything. And he's trying to, obviously go somewhere where he can have a parlay a good season into, the draft, going into the draft next year to hook up with an NFL team. But I mean, like I said, Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's very inconsistent. Like the last 4 games, I think he had like 2 catches last year when we needed him the most. He just kind of disappeared. Now, a lot of that could have been play calling. A lot of that could have been just Aller regressed a lot throughout the season last year. I don't care what anyone says. And you can look at Aller's numbers all you want. I think he regressed as a QB last year. We'll see if he can improve and, go start in the right direction with this new system. But even though I think he had like 25 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, you look at that and it looks like, damn, that's pretty efficient. But he had a lot of issues last year. And we'll see if he can, work on that and move forward. But he just wasn't great. Now, because of him, obviously we're losing our top receiver from last year, but I think we'll be okay. We got, obviously, Caden Saunders, Harrison Wallace there, and we got a transfer from Ohio State, Julian Fleming, who is a highly touted recruit. I think he can push in there, and hopefully, word is his progression in the new system has been slow, but hopefully he picks it up towards the end of summer into fall. And also, Liam Clifford is probably going to see a lot more of a workload there, especially on third down. He's a good third down receiver. Reminds me a lot of maybe like a poor man's Cooper Kupp, something like that, where he can make those catches, get those first downs, make a big play every once in a while. But we really need Harrison Wallace and Caden Saunders to really step up, obviously. And we got Tyler Warren coming back at tight end. I think he's going to have a breakout year, which is going to take a lot of the pressure off the receiving corps. And, of course, the running back situation is one of the best in the country. Honestly, man, I'll tell you what. Franklin is to running backs what Mike Tomlin is to wide receivers. He can just find them, and by God, they're good. So that's good. The offensive line, I think the offensive line may be better than advertised. Obviously, it's like I said, it's a spring game. There was whatever, and our defense is pretty good. So our ones on defense, especially the defensive line, our defense is no slouch. We'll get to that in a second, but our offensive line, we did lose obviously Olu Fashanu. I think that obviously that's going to be a big loss because he's projected probably a first round pick. People say he's slipping, he's falling, but I think he'll be a first-round pick, probably top 15, because he is a very athletic tackle, and they need those bookend tackles in the NFL. There's a very well. But I think we got that Wisconsin transfer, Nolan Rucci, who I think is going to fill in nicely there. You know, those Wisconsin linemen, they recruit those linemen, and they are very good over there, so he's good. And we got a freshman coming in named Cooper Cousins, who's very versatile. He can pretty much play anywhere on the line. And a lot of people, including myself, will not be surprised if he's in that starting lineup somewhere sooner rather than later. I mean, he can play center, guard, tackle. He can slide in wherever. And that kind of versatility is vital in today's football, both pro and college. It always has been, but even more so today. You really need a guy who can slide in at all positions because, you know, injuries happen. Unfortunately, it's a part of the game. So with his versatility, I think I think he'll end up being the center. I think that's where he'll play the majority of his play at center. But I wouldn't be shocked if he's a guard or even a tackle. But I think he's more of a center, which I'm okay with that. You know, you need that anchor for the offensive line to bull rush everything. So I think the offensive line will be okay going forward. We've still got some experience on there. We've got some good transfers and, you know, good incoming freshmen. It's going to be pretty good. It may not be a steamroller group, but I think with the running back talent, they will be good enough. And the mobility at the quarterback position, even with Aller, I think they will be more than adequate, you know, at best. You know, at worst, more than adequate. But I think they could really be better than advertised. Now, the defense, I think, is going to be obviously the strong point like it was last year, even though we lost Manny Diaz to Duke, which sucked. I hated that, but we knew it was going to happen. But we've brought in Tom Allen, the former Indiana coach, who's a good defensive mind, and he's really, really good at coaching them defensive backs, and that's been one of the strengths of our defense for a long time in recruiting, and I think it's going to be a thing here, especially Georgia transfer, A.J. Harris. That dude is going to be a stud. He's a stud in the making. He looked good. He's flying all over the field. The secondary's flying all over the field. And A.J. Harris is really going to fill in that secondary, that corner. He's going to be that shutdown corner, I believe. He is really good, and he's going to get even better. And then we got Abdul Carter. This is the big thing. He's moving from linebacker to defensive end, and with that kind of athleticism, he is going to be difficult. He's going to be disruptive to quarterbacks in the Big Ten all year long. I mean, I liken Abdul Carter to like a poor man's Micah Parsons now, and that's not a knock at all on Abdul Carter. I'm saying he's a poor man's Micah Parsons. It's just Micah Parsons, that kind of athleticism is like, you know, once in a lifetime type, but Abdul Carter's right there, just below him in terms of the athleticism, and I think he's moving to that defensive end, the edge rusher position, those couple of extra steps coming off that ball. I think he's going to get 14-plus sacks this year. I really believe that he is going to be a force. He'll probably lead the nation in sacks. He'll definitely be a finalist for a lot of awards. I mean, honestly, he could, with his talent, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some Heisman consideration. It probably won't happen, but, you know, it could, you know. There's a lot of guys on our team who could have some Heisman consideration, at least the Heisman, quote-unquote, Heisman watch, like Abdul Carter on the defense and Singleton or Katron Allen. I think Singleton's a little better than Allen, but Allen ain't no scrub. That's for sure. So, obviously, with the new expansion of the Big Ten, where there's like 162 teams in the Big Ten now or something like that, that's obviously hyperbole. But, you know, we've got, We've got USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington coming in, which is just strange. That's just weird. The conference alignment is completely off. They need to really just retool college football altogether and realign these conferences, because all this teams moving to different conferences and things, it's ruining rivalries. It's ruining, like, the regional. It's just, I don't know. It's just not the same. I understand, you know, it's money. But I really wish they could just, you know, like, rebrand the entire thing and form, like, I did a video about this a long time ago. I think it was like 8 super conferences and an 18 playoff. You know, that's what they should do. But, you know, we'll see what happens. I don't see Penn State winning the Big Ten, because I still don't. I think they'll be competitive all year, especially with that defense, because Tom Allen's a great defensive coach. He's a good teacher. He's got that experience, obviously, as the head coach and coaching the defense. So I think our defense will keep us in games. Our offense, I think, has the potential to be explosive. We'll see about the new system and the new offensive coordinator. Obviously, we're not going to know until we really get into serious game situations. The talent is there. The potential is there for us to be a thorn in some sides. But I don't see us being... I don't see Penn State as that national powerhouse anymore. I haven't seen that for a long time. Even though we've had a few outlier years, I see Penn State as a 9, maybe 10 win team. Fringe, New Year's Six Bowl. Maybe, stuff like that. More like, the Outback Bowl, the Citrus Bowl, stuff like that, which is not bad, but a lot of people think that this is our year, national championship. This is what we're going to do. I just don't see Penn State as that anymore. And with James Franklin coaching the team, that they're limited in how far they can go, in my opinion. But there'll still be a team, they'll have some success, but they're not that team. They're not Michigan. They're not Ohio State. Although Michigan and Ohio State, they're both very vulnerable right now. And we don't know what Washington's going to be, or Oregon, because they're both losing their quarterbacks. And Oregon always seems to find a way to be good, It's I tell you, the NIL deal is really big for a college like Oregon, because they got Phil Knight up there basically funding the entire thing. So any player in the transfer portal, no matter where he is in the country, I mean, they can be recruited there and get an NIL deal, quote unquote NIL deal. With most of these NIL deals are total bullshit. It's just a way to pay the players. Just give them money for very little, whatever it is. I'm all for players getting paid, but it gets out of control and it really does hurt a lot of teams, and it really just takes the competitive nature away from it, and it really can stack a few teams, and the other teams are left with nothing but scraps. That's where good coaching comes into play, which I'm not 100% sure Penn State has that. Like I said, people know what James Franklin's all about. But yeah, a team like Oregon, always dangerous because they can get pretty much any recruit they want in the transfer portal. I mean, how do you think they got Bo Nix to go from Auburn to Oregon? I mean, seriously, that's quite the jump in geographical location there. But, Phil Knight, Nike, NIL deals. Players are making millions of dollars before they even step foot on the field. And like I said, it's just that with the NIL deals and conferences, it really kind of takes the greatness out of college football. It's not what it used to be, but neither is pro football, and I'll probably ramble about that at some point. But I mean, it was a fun game to watch. If you're a Penn State fan, obviously for the fans, and now the coaches have a baseline of what they need to work on and check their conditioning levels. See how they, work in a quote-unquote game situation. So, gives them a good starting point for, the summer, working in conditioning, and then when they hit camp in the late summer, going into fall to start the season, hopefully they'll have a battle plan ready so they can improve, accentuate the positives, eliminate the negatives, and do that stuff. So, Penn State, it was a good game to watch. I watched it a couple of times, obviously, Not a whole lot you can say about a spring game, blue-white game, whatever you want to call it. It's a spring game. But at least it was a real game this time, sort of, and not like whatever they've done before in previous years. Is weird stuff, but, whatever. So that's all I got to say about the Penn State game. Not a whole lot of more action. Obviously, I will... Next episode, next week, I'll probably mention Keandre Lambert-Smith and where he's going, and things like that, and maybe we'll pull something out of the transfer portal ourselves. So we'll see what happens there. But I want to talk about something else too that happened. I know this was a week ago, but as filming this, and I like to let things marinate too. I know I could probably jump on it and get better views and eyes on it if I jump on it right away, but I like to let stuff marinate, and this is something that I want to let marinate. And I've done videos about this situation in the past, but it involves AEW and Tony Khan releasing the CM Punk footage, the closer footage of the the little locker room scuffle between Jack Perry and CM Punk, where they had a little. I mean, it wasn't a fight. It was just a little shoving match, a little wrestling from their All-In pay-per-view at Wembley Stadium, the stadium where all the fans are bragging that they sold out Wembley Stadium and it's like no one else can do that. And WWE did that shit 30 years ago, but that's neither here nor there. But I don't understand what he was thinking releasing this. I mean, obviously they were mad because CM Punk's interview with Ariel Helwani, where he came off as very credible. He didn't seem bitter. He was just, hey, this is what happened. This is why I did what I did and everything. And the problem is pretty much everything Punk said happened in that scuffle is what happened. Now there's a lot of people, because I'm on Bleacher Report, hearing a lot of fans talking, a lot of AEW stands, because I don't really care for Twitter anymore. I used to like to get like other reaction from people on Twitter, but Twitter is such a cesspool now. I really think if you want to talk about a certain subject of sports, try Bleacher Report, because that's, like I said, everything is good, but everything has their issues, obviously. But Bleacher Report seems like you can actually talk to people and interact with people who are talking more about the subject. And there's a lot of people that are, hate Phil Brooks, CM Punk. And for the record, I'm not the biggest fan of CM Punk, but I do recognize that the guy's a draw. You have to recognize the guy's a draw. I'm not the biggest fan of CM Punk. Never have been, even before all this stuff happened. But, I mean, CM Punk at the same time, he's a guy who he's too old and in a stage in his life where he doesn't want to put up with bullshit. And I can respect that, because I'm the same way. I don't want to put up with your childish high school bullshit, and that's what it is. But, Punk said basically, like, the incident was after the whole glass and Crimea River thing with Jack Perry, which this guy's a complete clown, and I don't understand why. Well, I mean, I know why Tony Khan keeps him around, because he's friends with the EVPs, and that's all that company is. Like Punk said in that interview, it's not about selling tickets, it's not about, making money, it's just about these guys doing what they want and spending a billionaire's money just to do all the stupid comedy and gymnastics routines that they were doing in National Guard armories and barns in California for years, and now they can do it on a national stage and call themselves quote-unquote pro wrestlers. They're not pro wrestlers, but the whoever convinced Tony Khan to put this footage on to just, I don't know what he was thinking or who talked to, but Tony Khan releasing this video is like, I think my man George Carlin can just sum it up better than I can. Right on, George. It was just ridiculous that he did this. And the problem is with this footage, like, you can clearly see what Punk described to Ariel Helwani is what happened. Now, there's people, like I said, on Bleacher Report who are saying, well, Punk threw the first punch, so he should have been fired. First off, that wasn't a punch, that was a shove. 2, Punk said that he's like, what are you doing? When he came back when Punk was ready for his match in Gorilla, he went to Jack and said, Jack, what are you doing? And he said Jack got up in his face and said, if you don't like it, do something about it, or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but he said, why don't you do something about it? And Punk did. Now, you could see Jack clearly got in Punk's face. Obviously, there's no audio, but you could see Jack got in Punk's face. Now, I understand that in this world, today's world, that, everyone needs their safe space and you can't do anything to anybody, but in the world I grew up in big boy world and the real world, not your fantasy woke world that a lot of you people, the young people, live in, if you get in someone's face and they retaliate physically, that's on you, okay? You say that they have, like, they'll throw a fit saying, well, they had no right to put their hands on me, yada, yada. Well, at the same time, you didn't have any right to get in this person's face. Now, I don't think Jack thought, because Tony Khan was around there somewhere, I don't even think Tony Khan was in that video, but you saw after the scuffle, Punk turned and talked to someone off screen, and he said that and he said that was what he said in the interview was like he turned to Tony Khan and said, "I quit. You're a clown. This company's a joke. I quit." So that's what he did. So Tony Khan wasn't even in the actual footage, yet he somehow feared for his life, which is the most ridiculous thing ever. Like Jim Cornette said, that's just what their crack legal department said about, told him to say to give him cause to fire Punk. But it's just like Jack got in his face, and because Tony was there and a lot of people were there, he probably didn't think that Punk was going to do anything, to say something. Because Jack Perry, he just looks like the kind of punk who, because he grew up and he was the son of like a Hollywood heartthrob and somewhat Hollywood royalty, especially in the 90s, and people well respected and everything. He's one of those people when growing up where he grew up, he was always wanted to run his mouth, and because he knew no one was going to do anything because of who his dad was. And how he probably had a bunch of people and his buddies around him who, if he ran his little dick licker, they would step in and do something. He wouldn't have to do anything. Because I don't think Jack's ever been in a fight in his life. And he thinks he's a tough guy, but he's not. And like I said, Punk said he didn't punch anybody. He just choked someone a little bit. That's what he did. He just shoved him, and then he grabbed him and put him in a headlock, and it was over in less than 10 seconds. Samoa Joe came over and just let him, got him to let go of it. I mean, everything that Punk said, that's the problem. Everything that Punk said happened. To anyone who looks at it objectively, looks like Punk was absolutely telling the truth here. So I don't know. And the Young Bucks did the whole thing to release it, to kind of promote their match with FTR. They're talking about, because of this, that was the last time they wrestled FTR and they lost. Said, well, they couldn't pray because of all this and stuff. Of course, they're playing it up because they're the heel EVPs, which they should have done that when Punk was still in the company because they could have made a hell of a lot of money together. But like Punk said, it's not about making money or selling tickets. It's just about them doing what they want to do and living in their little bubble, and they don't want anyone to come in there that is better than them, can draw more money than them, because Punk is a bigger draw than anyone in that company. He actually proved it because, let's face it, they reviewed that footage. When they showed that footage on TV, that sparked one of the bigger ratings they've had in a long time. It boosted their ratings a little bit, not by much, but it made it more than the 700 some odd thousand they normally get, because that company hasn't really grown at all. And then when they showed crowd footage, the people in the crowd watching that at the AEW event were chanting CM Punk. So that proves that CM Punk, a person who is in the WWE right now, hasn't been in their company in how many months, he's still the biggest star in that company. So there was absolutely zero benefit to Tony Khan doing that, other than the EVP thinking for some reason that it was going to portray them as more of a heel group. I think that might be my optimistic take on it. Maybe I thought they'd make them bigger heels, even though no one really cares about the Young Bucks at all. Like I said, they're not a draw. Neither is Omega. But they could have drawn when Punk came back after the Brawl Out situation, where the EVPs were 100% in the wrong on that one. Although there was blame to go around for Punk, and obviously Tony Khan is to blame for all of this. He is the absolute source of the blame for all of this, because if he had any balls whatsoever, he could have taken this, he could have nipped this in the bud right away and been like, hey, this guy makes me money, you don't, so you just need to get along, do what you do, or you're gone. And he should have fired Jack Perry right on the spot, because Jack Perry couldn't draw flies if you dipped him in shit, okay? He is not a star in this business. People thought he was at one point, but then he realized he's just a little prick who thinks he's a bigger star than he actually is. AEW has no stars. They have a bunch of niche, like I said, it's a niche product. And like I said, WWE isn't great either. I'm not a WWE stan, but releasing this footage is so wrong on so many levels, because it makes Punk look like he was in the right, makes Punk the good guy, makes you look like a bunch of idiots, a bunch of clowns. And you had to release this, and you thought it was even a good idea to release this on the heels of one of the greatest WrestleManias in history. Now, say what you want about that WrestleMania. Both nights, it was a very entertaining Mania, one of the most entertaining I've seen in a very long time. Like, the only bad match of that whole weekend, in my opinion, was Jimmy and Jey Uso, which shocked me because I thought that was going to be a banger and a dark horse for match of the year, but that was terrible. But every other match was good, and of course, the Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns match, and then the use of nostalgia and the old stars was absolutely perfect. The Triple H era kicked off with an absolute bang. And at the end of that, you have basically Cody Rhodes, another guy who left. I don't care what he says and why he left, the reasons. Cody Rhodes is just a lot more diplomatic than Punk is. He left because he knew that he was one of the people who started this company. Remember that. This company started with Tony Khan's daddy's money, because that's who's in charge. That's whose money this is. This isn't Tony Khan's money. It's his daddy's money. And AEW is not owned by Tony Khan. It's actually owned and operated under the Shad Khan business. So, honestly, anytime Shad Khan wants to, he can go to Tony and say, this is done, I'm shutting this down, AEW is no more. And there's not a damn thing Tony can do about it. Now, I think Tony Khan owns Ring of Honor outright, so he can still run Ring of Honor, but he's not going to be able to use daddy's money to do it. But the AEW started with Tony Khan, his daddy's money, and the EVPs were the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega, and Cody Rhodes. Now, Cody Rhodes was the only person who wanted the company to grow, be that sports-based product, and be the competition that could ultimately possibly dethrone the WWE. Or if nothing else, just be a good alternative to WWE. And for some people it is. For me, I have never liked it. Like, the first time I saw AEW is one of their first shows when they had a battle royal with a guy with no legs in it, and I'm sorry, that's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. Like, I'm all for inclusion, and I respect that, but, like, dude, the guy has no freaking legs. Okay? It was bad enough when Zach Gowen was getting beat up by Brock Lesnar 20 years ago. But, dude, no. But then Cody realized after a while that, because he never really associated with him, he did his own thing. Like, you see Cody segments, look at the Cody segments in AEW and compare it to the Young Bucks and Omega segments. And see, it's a completely different 180 show. Barring, Cody's talk about, his daughter, his mixed race daughter was going to somehow end racism or whatever the hell he said that one time. I don't remember, but that was the joke going around that his daughter, biracial daughter, is going to end racism for whatever. That was just goofy, but Cody Rhodes is pro wrestling. The Omega and the Bucks, they're the indie-rific wrestling, low-rent, Japanese BS. That's what they do, and that's what they want to do. They don't want to get bigger. The Young Bucks don't care because their checks are clearing regardless. They don't care if this company gets bigger. That's the problem. They don't. It's not beneficial to them for this company to grow and get bigger on a national stage and expand their audience, because they're not growing. This company isn't growing. Okay, they have their viewers, they have their people who buy the same stuff every week. Because I don't care what anyone says, AEW isn't growing, and that's fine. Whatever. I don't know how much money they make. I don't know their businesses. I know they pay a lot of crazy salaries for guys who do absolutely nothing and it won't draw anything. Like I said, the majority of that roster, much like Jungle Jackoff, would not draw flies if you dipped them in shit. So it was just a bad look all around. Made Tony look like an idiot. There's nothing on there where Tony would fear for his life. Of course, that, like I said, Jim Cornette and a few other people said that's just, legal jargon to have cause to fire him. But it was just, man, it just it went over like a fart in church. Let's be honest here. That was ridiculous and pathetic. So that's all I really have to say about that. Like I said, Punk is now one of the biggest stars in wrestling at the bigger company. Cody is the biggest star in wrestling at a bigger company. The two people that you lost that actually wanted to build this company into something bigger and have a wider reach are now in the company that's bigger and has a wider reach. That's not a coincidence. And honestly, if Triple H had to do it again, he would have been like one of the visions as WrestleMania went off the air was just in the ring, Punk and Cody Rhodes. And that might happen because I would not be shocked if when Punk comes back from his injury, he doesn't win the World Heavyweight Championship and Cody's still the WWE Universal Champion, and have those people, have those two just in the ring together. Those are your two champions. Sort of like, at the end of WrestleMania 20 when Chris Benoit, I know people probably don't know who that is because he's been completely erased from everybody's mind. But when Chris Benoit won the World Heavyweight Championship, the big gold belt, one of the last shots of that WrestleMania was Eddie Guerrero, who was the WWE champion, went in there to congratulate his friend, and those two guys sitting there, and that was the sort of like even though obviously WCW had been gone a long time, that might have been a little dig at Bischoff and WCW and Turner, because look who ended our WrestleMania right here. These two guys are bona fide stars of world champions. I think you'll see something like that. That'll be a nice little dig at them, because Triple H is obviously more concerned about his own product, but more than Vince, I think he's not opposed to taking little jabs, because he kind of did that on Pat McAfee's show when he pissed off old, what's his name, Will Ospreay, who just don't even need to get into that ridiculousness when he did that worthless interview talking about his grind is taking 8-hour flights to work one day a week and making thousands of dollars to do it. That's not a grind, dude. My grind is more than that, and I have no grind. But AEW just confirmed they're a joke. It doesn't matter what people think. They're a joke in the wrestling circle. When people who are real wrestling fans, they know AEW's a joke. Even people who watch it, they watch it ironically. I haven't watched AEW in a long time. I watch highlights on YouTube. But the last thing I ever watched on AEW was when Nick Gage wrestled Chris Jericho, and that was just ridiculous. I don't know why Jericho was doing that. He don't need to do that. People like Nick Gage need to do that stupid deathmatch crap because they have no talent and they're going nowhere. That's the only way they can stay relevant and make any kind of money, so they can pay for the apartment they share with 6 other guys. But that's all I really have to say about that. It was just a bad move. The timing couldn't have been worse. And Shad Khan needs to really sit back and talk to his son about, who his friends really are. Although, with the grumblings coming out of the Jacksonville Jaguars organization, I'm not sure if the Khan family has a clue how to run any kind of sports-based business or anything, because there's a lot of bad stuff coming out of the Jacksonville Jaguars, offices too, about how bad they are behind the scenes, how horrible their stadium is, how they don't pay their bills. So I think the Khan family in general, excuse me, is just a clown show. The whole business is a clown show. Because if that was my son embarrassing my business like that, I would have pulled the plug on this crap a long time ago. Because Shad Khan doesn't respect what they're doing with AEW. He said it when it first started. He said something to the effect of, when I die, my kids are going to inherit a lot of money, so I guess I might as well just start letting them waste it now. He doesn't have any faith in his children. And Tony Khan can't run a business. People want to say Tony Khan can't run a business. He runs some kind of analytics business or something. Or whatever Tony Khan thinks he does, or people think Tony Khan does. Whatever this analytics business that Tony Khan runs, quote unquote, it seems like what that business is can be done with a simple computer algorithm that a second-year computer science major could rig up. So Tony Khan is just a trust fund baby, a rich little punk, grew up, didn't have any real friends, just a bunch of sycophants and hanger-ons just telling how great he was because he was rich. And it's like Jim Cornette said it, this is basically his father is funding his hobby so he can play with his action figures. That's what he's doing. And Tony Khan has been successful in one thing, because when AEW Dynamite, in the first year when it was just getting off the ground, which hasn't really gotten very far off the ground, maybe about the size of a picnic table, the height of a picnic table there, but he said that he basically wants to model it after WCW Monday Nitro. That's what he said. He said that. model it after that. And so he wanted to make his company like WCW, and he has succeeded. The only problem is, in Tony's mind, his company is WCW in 1997, but it's in reality it's WCW in 2000. And anybody who don't know what I'm talking about, if you're my age, I'm 42. So I grew up in the Attitude Era, and I saw what happened with WCW, especially after old Vinny Rue got there, Vince Russo. Their 2000s WCW, the last year of that company's existence. Not 1997, when arguably the biggest year in that company, at least under the Turner ownership. In 97 with the NWO, they were on top of the world. And like I said, Eric Bischoff's podcast, if you ever see Eric Bischoff, why he calls his podcast 83 Weeks Podcast, is because during that time, 83 straight weeks, WCW absolutely killed WWF in the ratings in those times. Even though the WWF, towards probably the latter half of those 83 weeks, was the better overall product, but he was still riding a high. But eventually, it all comes down. And that's what's happened with Tony Khan. Like I said, the numbers that Punk did in merchandise and TV ratings and pay-per-view buys, I guarantee you they haven't beaten that. And they've ruined Chicago. They've ruined one of the biggest markets they had in Chicago. One, because they run it so often, and two, because one of the darlings of Chicago, Punk, as basically was screwed over and messed around by AEW, whether you like it or not. And like I said, Punk has some blame in this. I'm not saying Punk is an angel, and no one's saying Punk's an angel, but hey, you get in someone's face, run in your mouth, in big boy world, people retaliate. Okay, not in your little world, but hey. But they've ruined the Chicago market, which is a huge wrestling market. They do well overseas, but look what WWE's doing. You think WWE could not sell out Wembley Stadium? See, the difference between WWE and AEW is AEW, for one of their big pay-per-views, can sell out Wembley Stadium. The WWE could sell out Wembley Stadium for a WWE Network special. It's basically a glorified house show. So that's the difference. Anything AEW can do, WWE can do better. And a lot of that's just how long they've been around, the longevity and brand recognition. I get that. And WWE's not perfect, although they've got a hell of a lot of momentum with Triple H, who, taking a lot of the sports entertainment out of it and putting pro wrestling back in. That's a good thing, because I'm a pro wrestling fan. I haven't liked wrestling in years. And like I said, it was just crazy stuff. But like I said, long story short, like I said, I'm rambling. That's what I do. Bad move by Tony Khan. Stupid advice he's getting from these people who just sell him a bill of goods and tell him what he wants to hear, so he'll keep signing their checks and keep hiring these people who are maybe draws overseas but couldn't, like I said, draw flies if you dipped them in shit. And Jack Perry is off the top of that list. Yeah, you kept Jack Perry because he's the friends of the EVPs, and you let your biggest star go. Say what you want about Punk. He was the biggest star. He proved it because of the chance of CM Punk and the money and the rating they popped for showing that footage. And it was like 7 seconds of just everything Punk. It basically confirmed everything Punk said in his interview. And Punk came off very credible. And now AEW just comes off as a minor league organization, which is what they are. Like I said, AEW fans were always just jumping for joy and throwing babies in the air every time they beat NXT in the ratings when they were going head-to-head on Wednesdays before NXT moved. Okay, you beat NXT in the ratings. I don't think it's that much to celebrate when you beat the WWE's minor league affiliate in the ratings. That's not anything. That just means you're a minor league promotion. That's what they are. Overall, wrestling is still terrible, but it's getting a little better. I still don't watch it nearly as much as I used to. I'll catch the big shows and I'll watch highlights on YouTube, but hey, this is ridiculous. But let me know what you think in the comments, because a lot of people are divided on this, and a lot of people do not like CM Punk, and they think CM Punk is 100% to blame for everything. And like I said, Punk has a lot of blame, starting from the press scrum and All Out to the brawl in the locker room and everything that led up to it. Like Punk, even though more than the EVPs, Punk tried to work around it, tried to do what he could for the good of the company, to get the company over, to do business, to do good business. That's what he wanted to do at the end of the day. That's not what the EVPs want to do. That's the problem with the WWE or the AEW as a whole. They just want to do what they want to do, and the stuff that got over with 40 people in some little park pavilion in California. It's just ridiculous. So that's what I think. But like I said, let me know in the comments what you think. I'm going to end it on here. Like I said, my rambling has gone on for long enough. I'll be back next week with more rambles. Next week, actually, we're going to preview the NFL draft and how the Steelers could, in the directions they could go, what I think they should do, and what they probably will do. So I hope you tune in for that. And I hope you enjoyed this little ramble about things. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you enjoyed it, hit that like and subscribe button. It's going to be an episode a week. I'm going to get back into it again. Yeah. Check out my shorts. There'll be some shorts on this channel every now and again, but like I said, there's going to be an episode, this podcast, this new rambling podcast every week, where I'm just rambling like I am now. So, yeah, hopefully, my voice isn't so bad that it drives you nuts. This audio style is obviously no video here. This audio style, so you can have it on in the background while you're doing something. I do that all the time with my podcast too, that I listen to. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. I'm out.